welcome to the ICT Pulse podcast. I'm Michelle Marius, your host and the editor and publisher of ICT Pulse, the online platform where we discuss ICT issues from a Caribbean perspective. This is the second episode in our series on technology-based social enterprises, that is, tech-based businesses that have social impact among their core objectives. Today, the venture will be focusing on is Banj, a co-working space and Google-powered accelerator in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and is an important vehicle in the country's tech startup ecosystem. The brains behind Banj, who we're delighted to have on the podcast, is its founder, Marc Alain Boucicault. Prior to launching Banj, Marc Alain worked in international development at organizations such as the World Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank, and Banj was launched in 2017. Marc Alain, thank you so much for joining us.
I am super happy to be with you, Michelle. Thank you for the introduction. I'm here for any question and really about how we can showcase Haiti more in the Caribbean. And I'm very happy that I'm with you and we can do that together.
Thank you so much. So as we know, Banj is a co-working space and accelerator, but can you just give us a bit more details about the services it offers and the number of clients it's currently serving?
It's a very good timing for this podcast because we just finished our strategy for 2021. So we have a lot of details that we could share with you and that could help for your audience. So right now, Banj is a co-working space, but we see ourselves more as a driver of the ecosystem, bringing together partners, entrepreneurs, and members of the ecosystem in general. So right now, as a business, we are a co-working space serving right now about 70 clients in Port-au-Prince. We call them clients, members, because they're part of a community. And what they get is basically access to infrastructure for them to drive their business, access to space, access to internet, a place to be able to meet other people, networking, and also opportunities to learn through different programs that we have going on, including the incubator accelerator program with Google, but also a developer program with Facebook called the Facebook Developer Circle, and a variety of different events that we have going on. Most of them are trainings, most of them are also networking. So within that space, we serve a community, but we're also driving the narrative about Haiti and how we can build a stronger ecosystem by supporting tech startups in Haiti, but also looking at them as opportunity to go global.
Absolutely. And just to give us some context, what are some of the challenges that the Haitian tech entrepreneurs are experiencing generally? So if you can give us just some insight into the tech startup ecosystem in Haiti.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest issues right now in Haiti for the tech ecosystem as a whole is access to infrastructure, and basically access to internet and electricity. So this is like the fundamental, I think, issues that are actually right now being big problems that needs to be solved for the ecosystem to be building. We tend to see ourselves as, the pioneers, people who believe, in an idea when they don't see exactly the reality right now. The problem of infrastructure, including electricity and internet, is also stopping entrepreneurs from being able to, to scale their businesses as fast as they can. We are a population of about 12 million people, but in terms of access to cell phones, there's only about 6 million cell phones right now in Haiti, and I think 3 million of them are like more or less, smartphones. And among these smartphones themselves, some of them are very weak, so they're not able to to download heavy apps. So there's about close to maybe 1 million of those cell phones. So that's a big issue for the growth of ecosystem, but also it's showing the size of the opportunity if we can solve these infrastructure barriers and open up the space for tech entrepreneurs to be able to scale fintech, health tech, ed tech, and all these type of startups. I think another issue that I'm seeing a lot in the ecosystem right now is also the issue of how do you think about innovation? How do you conceive new projects? How do you leverage design thinking? So these are concepts that are new. And as you know, the education system in Haiti has a lot of issues. It's archaic in many places, and it also it's not exactly a level playing field where there are different schools doing different programs, and the majority of the population is connected to private education, sorry, and private education is not necessarily of the quality that it should be, so that you can, create smarter people who are thinking outside of the box or more innovators. I think these are also fundamental issues that are, being threats to growing the ecosystem. But like I'm saying, if you look beyond, the infrastructure or the education issue of Haiti, there is a lot of opportunity. We are one of the most populated communities in the Caribbean. If you can scale up anything in Haiti, you can scale it to the Caribbean, Latin America, and mostly Africa as well. So the opportunities are immense, and I think Haiti is a big land for tryouts, for people to try to start things with difficult context and see themselves grow fast towards the rest of the world.
Absolutely. As you were talking, I'm just then nodding my head because yes, if you can develop a project to sufficient scale in Haiti, that I think that it really offers a fantastic test bed for even businesses here in the region and certainly further afield, especially when probably for many other Caribbean countries, yes, you may have a brilliant idea that works well in a population of 100,000 people. But how then, if you want to take it to a population like, let's say, places in Africa or further afield where, you're dealing with millions of people, the solution and how you have designed it may not necessarily work exactly the same way. And probably, using the Haiti as a test bed, even in the region, could be an incredible way to really put a product through its paces before you take it global.
Absolutely. And I think that's why government in Haiti need to understand, what it will bring to the economy if Haiti could offer that test bed opportunity for the rest of the Caribbean or the world to come in. But for that, we have to solve some of the basic infrastructure issues so that Haiti could be this welcoming test bed, like you just called it. I absolutely agree with you.
Yes. Okay, so let's just step back a bit because you seem to have left what could have been a very illustrious career in, international development, with, fantastic growth opportunities to open up an incubator space, co-working space in Haiti. So what drove you to do that and why set up Banj?
Every time they ask you this question, I laugh because it was just, it's there are these moments in your life where you kind of like looking for yourself, right? And it's also an amazing thing to feel like you found your path. I've always been a smart student, a book smart, how we call it. So I think for you to be able to get into these type of jobs like the World Bank or the IDB, you have to be, a smart student, and especially if you're making it your early career, right? What they call entry level positions. So I studied economics in Haiti, but also did my Fulbright and did my master's in Washington, D.C. in the U.S., fully focused on economic policies and financial policies at that time. So these are qualifications that sets up opportunity for you to work in this kind of organization. Even though I've always felt very lucky in my career to be able to land in this position in a country that like Haiti, where it's very difficult for people to find job, unemployment rates are very high. So I kind of consider myself as, some kind of an intellectual elite. Definitely not the economic elite. I come from a very humble family. But as the thing is, as I was this, smart kid in a great job, I was also a very active community leader. Started my first experience was by creating leadership clubs within the university I was studying in Haiti, called ICTP. And these small clubs kind of grew into a youth organization after 2010, after the earthquake in Haiti. People were rebuilding concrete blocks, and we were kind of like a group of friends thinking, who's rebuilding the mines, right? And we decided to start this group called Group Echo Haiti. So that kind of fed into my community leadership aspect. I started traveling the world, being part of leadership networks. Started with a network called Vanguardia in Latin America. Then joined the One Young World, which is another huge, actually currently booming network of young professionals and leaders around the world. And I kind of had like all these global experiences, right? One Young World, Vanguardia, working for the IDB and the World Bank, which are also global organizations, and also being a Fulbright scholar. So I've always been around the world looking at how leaders and people are doing things. But that kind of always brought in me that kind of question, like, what am I doing for Haiti? Like, why am I discussing issues in Mexico? Why am I talking about problems in Europe? Why am I talking about issues in the United States? And why am I not focused on things in Haiti? Who's going to do it? So that always kind of like drove me, like that I have a responsibility towards Haiti. And like a lot of people say, you can always try to get Haiti out of you, but your country can never be taken out. It's always going to step back, right? So I was kind of always conflicted between a global career and what I can do for my country. And I think at some point, big organizations like the IDB, people like them, and the World Bank, they look really great in terms of opportunities of career, but they're also very bureaucratic. And the growth path can be fast, but the decision making capacity can be very limited. So I wanted to be free, basically, in some way. And I had all these things that were, on one side, I was telling young people, start companies, start businesses, get involved, not necessarily just business, but also you can be a social activist, go do something for your country. That was kind of what I was telling people all the time. But I was going back to my job every day at the same time. So at some point, I came back to Haiti. I was an economist for the IDB. Then I started working on some innovation projects and learning the power of ecosystems and technology within the bank, actually. And at some point in 2017, I was really at a moment where I really wanted to to be able to make decisions that I think were right as a Haitian for Haiti. And I met this team that started the Haiti Tech Summit in 2017, and I joined the team to help them kind of localize, what they're bringing. They were coming from the United States, Forbes 30 under 30, and I think that's the moment where I realized the power of technology needs to be combined with community work. And I always knew the model about co-working space, and always wondering why co-working space don't exist in Haiti. But it's hard, it's expensive to manage a thing like that. So I kind of walk around my partnerships and my connections, and basically quit my job and started, actually with no space at the time. We only got a space 7 months later, but just decided to jump on a 1 year break and start this company. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'll just try to find another job. But it's been 3 years now. I think at the end, we probably didn't make a bad decision.
Indeed, yes. I mean, as you're talking, I was getting goosebumps because, here it is that, what are you doing for your country? You have this wonderful job and job security and all of these things, but here it is, you were encouraging people to get involved, and it looked as if you stayed so far removed. So that, I think, that's a very powerful reckoning that you had, such that, as you rightfully said, it doesn't look as if you have made a bad decision as yet.
Yeah, we're since then since then we're now trying to scale the company into other cities and start other co-working space and bringing an entire movement. And the value of capital, social capital around the work that we've been doing has been immensely gracious. So I'm very grateful for the decision.
Right. And looking at Banj as a social enterprise, I think even though I think I understand it to be a social enterprise, do you think of it as a social enterprise? And what is the social good or social impact that Banj is pursuing?
So I've I've always been a firm believer in business for good. Um, so I told you I started a youth organization after the earthquake, but these organizations are entirely grant funded and always having to have the rush of finding a new donor, finding a sponsor for everything that you were doing. I was always telling myself, like, if I'm going to quit my job to be seeking grants nonstop, that wouldn't have been my sustainability strategy. So I always believed in business as a way to be house independent. And, somehow if you're leaving your job to be free, you're not that free if you have to continue doing grant writing and kind of pleasing donors. And that's a space that I knew very well for I have worked at the IDB, right? So I was also always looking for like what would be the most sustainable model. And that's where I think we started Banj. It is a business, so we are registered as a business because there's no such juridic form in Haiti that's called a social enterprise. That doesn't
Yes.
exist. So you start as a normal business, but your impact is where you're looking at your real social enterprise definition, I would say. So we work as a co-working space and we sell space. We sell space to entrepreneurs looking for access to infrastructure. We sell space to people organizing events. We are in the real estate business in one sense. But the social impact comes in through the various programs we have been able to either self-finance ourselves or being able to partner with people who are interested in what we're doing. So we get to set the tone in terms of defining a strategy where we want to go. And also these important partnerships with Google, with Facebook, we partner with the second biggest bank in Haiti, with the biggest telecoms in Haiti. We created that space where any entrepreneur from any type of background, whether you're coming from the slums of Haiti or you are the son of a business, the rich businessmen in Haiti, you can all come together at Banj because that's where we're discussing innovation and entrepreneurship. So I think the biggest impact we've had is the transformation we have seen on people. We've seen so many different stories of startups, people coming into Banj just with a camera, and today starting having one of the biggest marketing young youth-led marketing companies, or people who have been able to grow from trainings at Banj to being able to study abroad. There's a whole social movement that's happening in the back end of what we're doing, which is the biggest, where we take our biggest pride. But also the biggest formal element of our social impact is definitely our accelerator program, right? So we open applications for tech startups to apply, and they come in, they get access to free mentorship, so free coaching, they get access to community of mentors, and we have a specific program designed with Google in 6 different pillars where we support the entrepreneur, whether it's with their product design, user experience, their go-to-market strategy, their marketing, their operations, or their finance. So a very specific program designed to have them set goals and nail them, and leveraging our partnerships. To create Banj, we leverage partnership with different players on the ground. But today that we exist and we're growing, all these partners are part of the family, and now they're handing their hands either through their staffs or their money or their programs to the entire community as we bring them startup in our accelerator program. So it's not a classic way to kind of look at impact, but there's definitely a lot happening that is impacting people and the growth of technology in Haiti. And this is where we see our social impact in terms of company.
Okay, so how open was the Haitian business environment to a venture such as Banj when you started?
That's a very interesting question. I think most of our partners or most businesses we talk to, they basically just did not understand what the concept was. So we basically try to kind of tell people what they need to know at their levels. So some people were more interested in the co-working aspect. Some other people were interested in the business aspect. Some people, very few, were interested in the technology aspect. So I think it also protected us in a sense. Like when we started, we would say we had no competition per se. We had a strong community background, right? I'm coming from the grassroots movements of bringing people together. So a lot of people also saw it as another NGO, or this is just Mark with another youth project. So each member of the community understood the work that we were doing in a different way, and I think it's still the case in many ways right now. We were hit last year. I don't know if you know the story. There was a demonstrations in the streets of Haiti, political demonstration, and then the space was right on the street. And then they entered the space. They took everything we had, and then they put fire in a part of the space. And when that happened, it wasn't a personal attack. It was just us being in the wrong place at the wrong time,
Right.
I guess. But the community stood up saying, no, this cannot die. Because honestly, in the first few days, I was like, well, this is probably the end of the journey. It was a very interesting journey, but maybe we're going to have to end it. Or maybe we were going to have to scale back down. Or maybe I should take a break. All these type of thoughts were coming to my head until the community started standing up, posting pictures, and they even started a crowdfunding. So like I'm a business and people are crowdfunding for me to come back in. Like that's kind of unprecedented. Like if you're a business and you're destroyed, you figure out your funding mechanism to come back up, right? That's kind of how it works. But the community started a GoFundMe. We raised $30,000 to be able to kind of like buy chairs again, put electricity again, repair for a business, right? So to me, that's kind of the moment where I stood up and said, my gosh, this is bigger than me. This is much bigger than me. And I've been so focused on making this run that I wasn't even realizing how much people were being impacted by this business. So since then, I became personality of the year in 2019. Which is kind of like the biggest ranking list that's published by the oldest journal of the country. And my story went even beyond. We were published on Forbes, and we didn't have the amount of impact we had locally with this. And since then, people see us as a symbol of courage and also of youth entrepreneurship. So a lot of people accept us as this, not as a business per se, but more as of what we represent for the youth community and for Haitian who are trying to strive and trying to stay in their country.
Wow. That would have been such I guess, a traumatic experience, and really to see the community rally around you, and I guess the rest of the team as well. Because as you're talking, and I'm looking here, I'm based in Jamaica, as you know, and for a business, or even, a startup, something that one or two people who are trying to, put some sort of concept or venture together, you're looking for a safe place, you're looking for good infrastructure, and hopefully in an environment of like minds. So, for those who had been benefiting from Banj, I am sure that they really have appreciated its value, and so would be keen to ensure that it continues, because it is so easy to have, if one has that experience, and you may not necessarily have the resources to rebuild, to say, as you rightfully said, it was good while it lasted, but let me get back to other things. I don't need to put up with this, and the community really showed their support. So that I think is just fantastic.
Thank you. Very inspiring. Definitely.
Yes, and I guess certainly, keeps you motivated to continue and to grow and all of those wonderful things.
Definitely. Oh, definitely. Like I told you, we're trying to scale the experience to different cities now. So I
Yes.
guess we're back. We're not giving up. Yes.
Okay. And just talk to me about what might be some of the key performance indicators or markers of success that are important to Banj.
Well, there are two categories. I mean, I think as again, like we were going back to the definition of what I want to assume as a social business within the context of the legal options here in Haiti. we'll definitely have our KPIs related to our performance as a business. So basically, we break down the services that we offer into, memberships, space, rental. It's very funny. It's just a quick parenthesis. So when we get back from being destroyed, and we were in January 2020 getting ready to now restart, using the fund we got to rebuild. Then Corona hit in March. So if you're in a co-working space or in the business of bringing people together, and then you have to face Corona, that basically also destroys your business, right? We lost about 80% of our clientele. Everybody left, trying to work from home or trying to survive on a phone. Yes, infrastructure is important in the internet, but hey, the country had a lockdown. The government wouldn't allow people to be in the streets around certain times, and people were not gathering. So here we were, just 3 months after we survived a riot. Now we have to face COVID. But then again, the creativity of the moment was the era of people starting doing live events. So we created a new product in the company, which is called digital services. So people started asking us, access to our developers to be able to build website. So since, everybody's looking at the perspective of everything's going to go online, so we started offering digital services, whether it's live events, live training. Every organization in the country that had a budget to run events during the year had nowhere to do it. So we were going in social distancing format, doing online events for corporates. So all our clients, all our partners started offering us opportunities to do digital events. So basically, COVID pushed us to open up new services. So Banj, basically our KPIs are really the rental, the memberships, the digital services, and the consulting. The consulting is everything that we do studies for organizations or run entire programs. So we've run programs for the IDB, we run program for the Canadians, we run program for the US Embassy. Everything that's involved around technology and innovation and trying to help with startups. So these are our 4 measurements of economic success. So do we make enough money there so we can sustain the other amount of KPIs that we have, which are related to our social impact? So basically, how many entrepreneurs we support, how many programs that we do, how many networking events that we create ourselves or through partners, and how many people we've been able to reach through our various programs. So these are the elements of our social impact that goes within our social impact KPIs. So we do have a business KPIs and social impact KPIs. That's how we look at them.
Okay. With regard to the accelerator, can you give me a sense of the program, how long it lasts, and what may be options for persons who use the word graduate out of the accelerator program?
This is an excellent question. My gosh. So we are just a 3-year-old company with a 1-year kind of like break pause because of riots and Corona, right? So we basically are testing this around. So we started our accelerator program looking at best practices from Google. So we started a 4-month accelerator. Our companies actually almost never graduate. It's kind of very funny. We are still working with each one of them. That's kind of like where I'm asking myself questions. The US model where the guy gets into Y Combinator and spends 3 or 4 months, comes out of the program sucking up, ready to go, and taking all the resources that they could have and to fly on their own. It doesn't really apply here. There's always this need for space, this need for a new partner, this need to support. And I'm at a point where I'm asking myself, it's complicated to run an accelerator program in Haiti because the companies never really graduate because the accelerator is too much of a needed support, and it's kind of becoming like a drug. Right? And anything that works like a drug doesn't really work. And it's also taking a lot of resources. And it's also blocking us from getting new startups. If we know if we add new startups, we're just adding more burden. There's no such thing. But there's also short programs that we run. as an incubator. The incubator definitely have more of a deadline. So we work with them for 6 months, this program. And we usually do our incubator as kind of like a consulting services for organizations who have a budget to support entrepreneurship, but don't know how to go about it. So we design a specific program for them that's inspired by our accelerator program, but this one is short and it's actually they graduate once they have a fully working prototype and a strategy to go to market. And these are also startups that we could also get back at our accelerator level, but these are like signed contracts that we have with specific clients, I would call them. So these programs are 6 months, and then they end at the moment where the startup has a working prototype and a go-to-market strategy. So
Okay.
these would be more of our graduating. But when we take them in our accelerator, our goal, we want them to go much bigger than they are, right? It's not about, it's actually when they come, they already have a prototype, but they need to actually create like a whole maybe operating system for them to be operating as a business, or they want to work on their marketing strategy, or they want to redesign the product that they have so that actually more they can be more user friendly or people can actually apprehend it, or they need coaching and mentorship in ways that they can prepare to scale. So these we start working with them, but it's kind of like a never ending kind of thing because they're always coming back looking for new partners, looking for something to fix. And these are like we also see them as our babies. So we kind of like, I mean, until we find that success story, that's because there's also that. I'm not trying to paint Haiti as this place where incubation has worked or where an accelerator has created a success. I think we're still having a lot of barriers. I talked about them in the beginning of the podcast. So we, even for ourselves as a company, we're like over investing as well in terms of what if we can create that one success story that comes out of Haiti and that can be not only a financial advantage for us because we also invest in these companies, we take some equity, but also for a story for the country, right? That my gosh, these startups came out of Banj and scaled through the Caribbean and Latin America. So until we see that happening as a story for us, we're kind of like pushing and pulling resources in and see where we go.
Understood. And I guess I can appreciate because the thing too is that I get the sense that Banj is almost like a lighthouse, for the tech community and the tech startup community in particular. So if you ever have a challenge, you go to Banj. So as you say, you may have companies or businesses that are part of your accelerator program, but whenever they need something, they always come back. So there's almost a sense that they never fully graduate and fully are on their own in the world. So I guess I can understand that, and recognizing just how challenging the last year and even the year before with the fire and so on in Haiti, that the incubator may not necessarily have realized many successes as yet, as virtually everybody, our business plans and business models have had to adjust to varying degrees based on the constraints that the pandemic has introduced.
Yeah. You always have to try to find solution for yourself also as you also have babies to feed. It's like a perfect picture like that. So we are finding ourselves as a company. We are trying to adapt to a changing reality in a country that's very volatile. And at the same time, we're still having startups that have issues and coming to the lighthouse, like you're calling it. It's very challenging in a sense where you need to be the light when you're also looking for the light. But it's also a beautiful challenge. I think it's probably also a pioneer type of issue. You always have to kind of adapt and support. Adapt and support. That's kind of how we go. But we do have a few small success. We had one company that came to our accelerator. They're doing the guy came from the medical school of Haiti and wanting to doing X-ray analysis. He's a radiologist. He was doing them on WhatsApp. People sending him pictures of those cliches, and he was just analyzing them on his phone. He came to our accelerator with that. We help him built an entire infrastructure online where now people can submit these things online, and he has a viewer where he can, look at them, measure them with more accuracy. And he started the RadioCam. We help him register the company, build the operating models, the training systems, and the entire operation and how it works, and the technology. And then we help him secure some money actually after COVID from X-rays and analyzing people's chests was a big element during COVID, right? So we took that opportunity and helped them, write for financial support through AUF, the Francophonie, the Association of French Universities, French-speaking universities, globally. So they got some funding, and now they're delivering their services to 5 hospitals in the outskirt of the capital. And as you know, Haiti is a country that's where services are not always accessible outside of the capital city. So you have hospitals where they don't have access to a radiologist. They probably have never seen a radiologist ever in their lives. So services are spread throughout the country. So decentralization is an important issue for the country, and they're coming with this technology tool, and they're providing that service from far. So all the hospitals have to get is an internet connection, and then they can just they bought systems in China where they have like old school scanners where they can actually digitalize the scan and send them like with a standard precision, and uploading them on the platform. And he started creating jobs for other radiologists that can also create an account on the system and analyze the x-rays from their home and making extra money from those hospitals. I think this is a beautiful story. We're very proud of the work they have done, and seeing them coming from a WhatsApp and taking pictures, and one person came to the accelerator to building a team and being able to scale to 5 hospitals. We're very proud of that startup, for example.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, and I mean, certainly, I think when you have a global pandemic that is contagious, and the whole issue of leveraging technology, remote working, being able to provide, medical diagnosis remotely, because I'm sure in Haiti as well as across the region, we've been talking about telemedicine and being able to access assistance that medical expertise that may not necessarily be readily available in your country, such like to do consultations, to analyze results and tests and the like, and to basically to help to bolster the team that would be available locally. So it's fantastic that this radiologist had this idea and recognized that, yes, WhatsApp may have allowed him to do what he wanted to do in a certain way, but there was a bigger opportunity that he could have leveraged. That's so wonderful.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Okay, so as we begin to wind down our discussion today, I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions, basic, probably just on your experience as the leader, the manager, the mind behind Banj. How would you describe yourself as a manager or the founder and lead for Banj?
It's very, very interesting question. I mean, people sometimes ask me, how do you manage to do all these things all together? I'm a big, big believer in empowering people and letting them run the show in terms of outsourcing. I think I was having a discussion about, there's even the model that I used to even build the company, reaching out to partners instead of making a budget and just paying for those services. Or some people would see a different strategy where, since I was younger and I was in a volunteering world, I could have had people, volunteer to kind of like paint the space, volunteer to kind of like come and build, volunteer to fix the bathrooms, and volunteer, to do all these things. So I was like somewhere in the middle of paying for everything and get people to volunteer and do things unprofessionally. I went more in a route of connecting with people who do these things professionally, for whom I would never have the budget to pay for their work, but offer them an opportunity to be part of a story, to be part of of a movement. So and I think in that sense, we have been able to do so much with a small team. Like for example, the maintenance of the company is a partnership. Even the architects who designed the space has been a partnership. Access to internet in the space is a partnership. So we delegate a lot to professionals and make sure we can get the best quality of service that we can get. In terms of managing a team, I'm very big on being the driver of the energy, but making sure that people are empowered to take control. When we first started, I was the one, behind signing every member, setting up every member that we got into the space, writing every proposals that we could get out there to get a consultancy and these things. So today we are a small team of only 4 people managing everything you've heard me. We've just told you that we've been doing. Outsourcing a lot. Right now, we've been able to kind of stabilize our business model in a sense where we have long-term partnerships for some in-kind solution, including space and internet, and everything else that's related to operations. I do not do operation, even though in Haiti it's a small country. People will call you as a founder of the company for any details that they want to have fixed. It's a small country type of reality. But I tend to kind of like forward those cases towards the team. So we have a head of operations, we have a head of finance, and we have a manager, a general manager. So that's pretty much all we are, and then the rest is like the small personnel that takes care of the cleaning and these type of things. So a very, very small team where everyone is empowered to be able to do their job. That's the only way for me to be able to strategically think about next steps and next moves, even though it's not always easy to do that. But I still maintain at least some full-time work in terms of being the public face and being the porte-parole, the public face of the company, because like the whole strategy for building it was also about mixing it with my personal story, like you probably realized in the introduction. Like this whole thing started with me being in community building and me with this background and working for these big institutions and turning all of this into a story. So I still have to keep up and going to events and speaking on podcasts and being the voice and the face. But that's also something that I would love to kind of build a separation from at some point, to be able to again continue focusing on what's the next step, what's the next thing. I'm a builder. I love building. I like dirty things when you create them. Like I like to break my head on how do you start something new, even though I have to work and put my hands in everything. But once they're built, I believe that other people should take over so I can go and build something else. So that's kind of like how I like things. So I kind of try to build a leadership in that sense, make sure as I also build, I build with people so we can empower more people so they can take over once I move on. I mean, I built different platforms. One of the things I didn't probably mention in the beginning, we built Elon Haiti, which was a program where we brought young leaders, 100 from around the country and the diaspora and internationals to Haiti to think about development. This is one of the things actually that was my first step into like the public leadership beyond just in the university. So we built a network of 300 young leaders who are today, they're head of companies. They are, seniors in different enterprises or in different NGOs in the country, which has actually been really good for the networking around Banj as well, that program. But that program is no longer managed by me. So, right, someone else from the association that we created, Group Echo Haiti, is managing it now. So I'm happy. And even the club I started in the university where I studied, they still exist 10 years later with tons of different leadership, because we created status for them and then ways to transition power and all of these things. They're still working. So I'm actually very proud of, that way of kind of like, I like to build new things, but building with people so people can take over so I can go build something else.
That's wonderful. And luckily you do know what your strengths are and what you're good at. But I also want to know, what has been the biggest lesson you've had to learn in whether it's running Banj or just, becoming, very entrepreneurial minded?
Wow. Yes, I don't come from an entrepreneur family at all. My mom is a public servant, and my dad he passed away in 2015. He was a teacher. So really public service in all the way. Wow. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is that so I'm an economist, right? So I studied a science that combines both social and mathematics, right? That's the beauty of economics. You can talk as much as you want, but at some point the numbers needs to back it up when you do modeling and things like that. Um, the biggest lesson I've learned is actually to understand people and how they can contribute to growth. I think it's like studying economics in school gave me all these theories, but becoming an entrepreneur really showed me the practicality of it. I think I interact with at least, I don't know, 10 to 15 new people a week with the work that I'm doing. Partners, friends, clients, members of the space, understanding how humans think, how you need to like it's not just about you have a team working for you making sure they get the work done. No, you need to check on their emotions, you need to check on their expectations. And when you're meeting a new partner and you're about to present or pitch a new project, or if you're managing an incubator, the entrepreneur comes to you with impossible in his forehead. Like he's just literally about to tell you everything I tried doesn't work, I don't believe it's going to work. So you have to turn all that mindset into positivity. No, you can make it happen. This is how we're going to do this. Let me show you one thing that works. What is a small success? Low hanging fruit. I think I've been interacting with people from CEO of companies like huge corporates in Haiti, all the way down to just this high school student who wants to become an entrepreneur one day in his life, touching also employees, partners, service providers. Like this, I learned how to really interact with people. That's my biggest lesson from this. How do you understand where people are coming from, what they want, and how they can contribute to the growth of anything that you're working on? Biggest lesson.
Fantastic. And it's so true. I think sometimes we lose sight of the people element and how much that drives success. It drives the relationship and it also drives the success that you hope and hopefully mutual success for all parties concerned.
That's true. I like when you said mutual success because also sometimes it's not always beautiful. Sometimes people think, you help somebody build something and then they come back, they're like, oh, you used me. And like, how did I use you? Wasn't that what you wanted? Like, didn't you get what you want? Like, and then, I started working with people that I no longer work with as well. So it's not just beautiful in the sense that everything worked, we've messed up in some places too, but we also learn. But again, it always comes back to understanding people and how they can contribute to growth.
Absolutely. And what is the best piece of advice you'd give a tech startup that wants to be a social enterprise? They've heard your story, they're inspired, and they say, I want to be a social enterprise, not necessarily doing co-working spaces, but they want to have a business, a tech business that has social impact. What advice would you give them?
My advice would be start small and build your way up. Like when I started what I was doing, I didn't have an 800 square meter space ready for me to just jump in. When I was leaving my job, I had no co-working space. I actually borrowed a space and started running events on my own, inviting people to come in, inviting. Every time I invite somebody, I was selling the idea, selling the dream as we were doing whatever we were doing. And also, it helped me not invest too much too early, right? You invest, some capital, small amount, you test it, fail fast, fail early, fix right away, and then start small. Start with the smallest version of what you want to do. Whatever the impact you want to make, there's always a smaller version of it. Start aiming that small version. Use low hanging fruits and then build up. Build fast, build sustainably, but always small. Start small so you don't waste your resources on a big concept that never works. If there's one thing that they should know and that I learned, nothing really happens the way you planned it in entrepreneurship. Things are always changing. So you never really want to put too much resources too early because there's going to be adaptation, there's going to be pivots. And that way you're going to like write your story at your own pace. Never let anyone speed you up. No one can tell you what your speed should be, only yourself. And then continue building and building piece by piece. And then you'll get to where you want to be and have the impact that you want. That's my advice.
Fantastic. And what do you think your advice would change if you're actually talking to just a young tech startup, so a prospective client for Banj? Would your advice change?
No, not at all. I mean, I think I would add on it. If you want to join the accelerator of Banj, we're looking for someone who's like committed, like people who are driven. Like I always tell people, the technology can change anytime. Actually, we've changed technologies multiple times for this startup I was just telling you about. We started using this website and then we realized that the developer that built it for them actually was wrong the whole way because the way they structure the chain of command on the platform would not fit a new reality. And then when you bring a new developer on board, he's like, oh my gosh, the coding background was poor. We have to redo everything from scratch, sometimes using a whole new different coding language. So all these technical aspects are going to change. But if there's one thing that never changes is the energy of the entrepreneur. And that's what we're investing in. We're not investing in codes. We're not investing in tech per se. We're investing in the entrepreneur. So if you want to be part of that journey, you want to join our accelerator, or you want to make a success in the tech world, make sure you focus on finding the best way to get things done. And I think that doesn't only work for tech entrepreneurs. It works for entrepreneurs in general. And of course, there are a plethora of tools that you can learn. Go online, learn them. You can join an accelerator and you can have people coach you and mentor you about them. But all the information that you need is on the internet some way, somehow. So take your time, make your research, and make sure you build in a sustainable way.
That is so true. And my final question, in addition to expanding Banj into other cities across Haiti, where would you like to see Banj in the next 3 to 5 years?
Honestly, my big dream is to have at least one success story come out of here, something that scales out of Haiti. That's my biggest dream. And building new Banj and starting the programs, we've done a lot in the digital world in 2020. We've grown our followership on social media. We've grown our database of emails. We've grown. Now we're growing. We're planning on growing more digitally, but physically. We see all these things as as groundwork, right? This is all about reaching more people, inspiring more people, teaching more people, mentoring more people, coaching more people, networking with more people. But all this is for one ultimate goal: development of the tech ecosystem in Haiti and beyond Haiti. So this year we're also expanding our work in Trinidad, starting remote programs from Haiti to Trinidad. All these opportunities are just creating pathway for our accelerator program to be able to reach more people faster, partner with people easier, and being able to build that story that will take off from Haiti. So the biggest goal that we have is to create one success story that will make Haiti a showcase for development of tech.
Wonderful. That is certainly a goal to keep in mind and really, to helps you to be committed and to drive towards that through all the things that you and your team are doing.
Small team, big dreams. So
Absolutely.
hopefully things work.
Absolutely. And just thank you so much, Marc Alain, for just chatting to us about Banj. I mean, I personally even just feel inspired and really I'm rooting for Banj as well as for Haiti in terms of all the goals that you have set and the dreams that you have for the tech environment and the entrepreneurs and startups that are hopefully going to put Haiti on the map as, a jewel in the tech crown globally.
Well, thank you, Michelle. Thank you. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Didn't even see the time passing. I cannot wait to see more shows coming from your podcast platform and continue to inspire more people, not just in Jamaica, but throughout the Caribbean about, how to be focused and how to create the best journey they can for tech and for their personal lives. So thank you for your work, and I hope to hear again from you on another podcast. And hopefully maybe one day in Haiti, if you can come.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the ICT Pulse podcast. You can find links to some of the things we talked about on our website, ict-pulse.com. If you like this episode, please show your support by leaving us a review on iTunes, as it will help others find the show. You can email us at info@ict-pulse.com or drop us a note on our Facebook page, facebook.com/ICTPulse, or via Twitter @ICTPulse. We hope you'll join us again for our next episode. Take care.